And really just thank you, Justin, for coming along and presenting. This is actually a keynote session. It's down as that. And I was going to say, Justin, you've been around Moodle for a long time as well. You're just part of the furniture, really. And I guess I know you as the Poodle guy, but I know you do so much more than that. That probably undersells you quite a bit, actually. But I know you're involved in all sorts of areas, and you know your Moodle stuff. So look, appreciate your time in presenting at iMoot again, and yeah, looking forward to the presentation. Thanks, Justin.
Cool. Thanks, Shane. Yes, so thanks for the introduction. My name is Justin. I'm known as the Poodle guy, but as Shane said, I guess, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing quite a few things that are not Poodle too. And although he said I feel I've been around Moodle for quite some time, somehow I still feel like a newcomer because when I joined, I wasn't, I hadn't been around for a long time, and there are people who've been around for ages, and I still feel somehow stuck in that. But I know people have come along since me and would consider me a granddad. I've just finished teaching, we're just about finished teaching the Moodle Bytes for Developers course, for Introduction to Development, and a course for people who are already developers. So I'm going to take a bit of a break from that particular angle. I'm going to talk about how to get by in Moodle, how to customize Moodle without doing a great deal of development, a great deal of coding, I should say. Okay. So when I talk about coding, because there will be some coding in what we talk about, there'll be a little bit of HTML and a little bit of CSS, but when I say coding, I'm really talking about writing PHP or SQL, what we commonly call server-side coding. So one of the distinctions here I'm going to make is between customizing Moodle via the front end, or via various techniques which I'll introduce shortly, and customizing Moodle via code, PHP coding. So why do we code in the first place? And I'm not going to ask you, I'm just going to tell you. You probably have your own opinions. One of the reasons is to add function. We want to add functions that are not there, features, fix bugs, of course, in existing code. We want to add styling. In many cases, you actually just simply want to add branding. You want to personalize it or customize it to your look and feel. And in many cases also, you simply want to simplify what you see, because a lot of the features that are there you don't use. You don't need your students or your people using your Moodle site to know about those things. And tailor Moodle to your needs. Now, amongst those things, I would say really you only need to do coding for adding functions and fixing bugs. The other things, you can go quite a long way by customizing Moodle using the techniques that I'm going to talk about. And I don't want to spend too much time fluffing around, so let's just move on. Why not code? Now this is an interesting discussion. And as a guy who does a lot of work with coding, you may think it's surprising when I say that I think people shouldn't code so much. And people try and reduce, the cost of something just to purely money costs. But I really think it's worthwhile to distinguish between, the money cost of doing a thing and some of the other costs, because you can oversimplify things or over-reduce things so that you don't really understand the problem anymore. So the money cost is simply how much you have to pay for the developers. Time cost, well, this is the time that you could have delivered your product or your course, or started getting user feedback, validation, sales. That's the time cost, and that's significant, I think, with development. The risk cost, this is, I think, something that's probably, managers often don't understand this. They have this vision of what it should work like, and they talk to you about it, but they don't really understand the risks that are involved in coding. Like, why is off the shelf good for everyone else but not for you? Because when you code, you risk bugs, which are going to cost developer time, and bugs are hard to predict. So you can't actually be sure that you're going to meet your release dates. Off the shelf, if you go off into outer space in coding and you have this blueprint or this vision of what you want to achieve, there are implications that you can't really foresee. For example, some people, they don't like the list style of Moodle with all the lists of icons and the titles. we'll have something that looks more like iOS with the buttons and the big friendly nature of it. But when you do this, you might, somebody who's not really familiar with Moodle, not really familiar with a lot of the things, they would forget that you need to advertise the availability conditions if something has conditional access requirements, for example. And so by going off into outer space, you end up having to recreate the wheel in ways you probably hadn't considered initially. And finally, the maintenance cost. Every time there's an upgrade, you have to deal with that, and sometimes it's not a part of your business processes. So these are some of the reasons why I think we should really consider carefully before we, jump into coding. Is it really worthwhile? Is just to emphasize this point here. I've written here in Comic Sans, just to make sure you know I'm serious. Do you really need to code? Because before you start on a project, just think about what you really need to actually code and what you can get away with tweaking and using a little bit of CSS and a little bit of clever use of your Moodle features. Okay, so that's the fluff, and let's get on to the guts of it, which is actually the how. How are we going to do these things without getting stuck into code? So the most obvious one is to add plugins and themes. So if you want your site to have a nice slide menu, well, you'll put in one of Gareth's nice themes, which has not slide menus, sliders. Then there are the theme settings. Themes. There are lots of theme settings in the individual themes and a global theme settings area. There's language localization. Moodle has the ability to customize the language strings from the user interface. There is the HTML editor source view, which allows you to get in there and just add some HTML or add classes, CSS definitions to your HTML. And then there is a plugin, which is a plugin called Generica, which is mine, and I'll briefly introduce that if we have time at the end. So let's go through these. We'll skip plugins and themes because I think we're kind of familiar with those and we could spend all day talking about that. We'll go straight on to theme settings. So the theme settings, you can find these under Site Administration, Appearance, Themes, and then the current theme. So if your theme is Shoelace, it'll be under Shoelace. If it's your theme is More or Clean, it'll be under More or Clean. And for the most part, they all have color settings and custom CSS settings, and they have other settings too, depending on the theme. So you'll notice, for example, Essential has a whole list of settings pages devoted to different aspects of settings, whereas the Moodle Cloud theme just has a single page. One of the settings on the not so much on the specific theme, but on the theme settings page in general, is a custom menu items theme. So you can add menu items to the top bar of Moodle. I think the theme can actually determine where those are displayed, but you can do this in the Moodle user interface without having to drop into code. You can add links, for example, to a help desk. You might have like a forum that uses a help desk, and you can put that link right up there on the menu. There are user menus, so that user menu that you see that drops down just beneath your picture on the right-hand side, in most cases, of Moodle. You can actually customize what appears there. And if you go to the Site Administration, Appearance, Themes, Theme Settings area, there's actually a little explanation of how to do that. But what you see here on the left-hand side is that settings area, and on the right-hand side is a result of that settings area. I did think we might actually go through and add an item to the header here using the screen sharing so you could see that. But I'm just going to move on because I think many of the people here are probably reasonably familiar with this or wouldn't be troubled by how to do this by themselves. And we'll just keep moving to, we will do some actual practical stuff, but we'll do that where we have things that perhaps are a bit more challenging. Now, I talked before about the language customization tool. So this is available under Site Administration, Language Customization. I'm not sure if it's a Z or an S. You see, I've mixed it up there a little bit. It depends on if you're a US person or a UK kind of person, really. But Using the language customization tool, you can edit the strings that you see in Moodle. And this could be the captions on buttons, or it could be even the email text that people receive when they sign up or when they join a course. So it's actually quite powerful and a little bit underused. I think people don't realize that this is available in many cases. So, for example, using the language customization tool, you can search for a piece of text, and you'll then get a listing of the places where that piece of text appears in language strings. And then on the right-hand side, you actually have a little box there, and you can change that language string to something that is more meaningful for you or suits your particular business case. So let's try that. I'm going to now level up, and I'm going to use some screen sharing here, and let's see if it works. I have in the past had incredible disasters using screen sharing, but I tested everything, so I'm as confident as can be. I hope it's not too small for you. It might be too small for you. I really hope it's not. This is another browser window, and you can see here we have in the center, we have the Attempt Quiz Now button, which you should be familiar with. It's a standard quiz button. But it might be that your students find this a little bit confusing. My students certainly did when I was teaching English in Japan. Attempt Quiz Now didn't sound like what they were expecting. They might have been expecting something closer to start or go. So without hacking Moodle, without getting to PHP or editing any files, we can edit this string from the language menus. So I've actually already loaded this up because you do actually have to load the language pack up for editing, and that can take some time. So I've prepared this already. I've searched for the string attempt quiz, and you can see here it appears in several locations. Attempt quiz now says attempt quiz now. So that's probably what we're looking at as the button text, the caption of the button. We also have here reattempt quiz. So let's do some editing, and we'll put here start. My students like that. And where we have here reattempt quiz, let's also put start, and we'll put again. Okay. And then we have two buttons at the bottom, apply changes and continue editing, and save changes to the language pack. So let's click on the save changes to the language pack, and that should be saved for us. We have a little confirmation screen. Let's save our strings. Good, so we should be good to go. So let's go back and have a look at our button. We have to refresh our browser. Depending on your setup, you may actually have to purge your cache. Purging caches is something that you often have to do when you're developing and editing language strings or CSS, because Moodle caches everything. In this case, I've set it up so we shouldn't have to purge our cache. But you can see here that has been successful. Instead of saying attempt quiz now, we have start, which is wonderful, isn't it? For those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of purging your cache, let me quickly show you that. Here under Site Administration, it's probably a little bit small for you. I apologize if you're seeing this within some sort of blue button kind of framework. But under Site Administration Development, there is a menu item called Purge All Caches. If you click Purge All Caches, you'll be taken to a screen to confirm that you want to do that, and you can purge your cache. And that will refresh Moodle, and it'll start picking up language strings and CSS settings again. We'll be starting from scratch. I've just removed screen sharing, so we should be good. Back connection again. And let's have a look here. I'm just going. Sorry, as I was screen sharing, I couldn't actually see everybody's messages, so let me just read those. Indeed, yes, that's true. Sometimes you don't know where a string could actually be used in several locations. You're never actually quite sure. There is actually a setting where you can append strings equals 1 to the URL, and that will show you the source of the language string that you are looking at. which is quite nice if you're, if you're not sure exactly which string it is. I don't want to go too far down the line here, so I'll just leave it at that. But if you look at the Moodle documentation, you should see more information on that. What happens if a language pack is updated or you do a version update? I think you're good, Andy. Yeah, I think it just keeps what you do. And the nice thing about this also is it survives the backup and restore. So this is one way you can customize Moodle quite effectively, and you'll see I've spelt language wrong there. But this is one way you can customize Moodle quite effectively without having to do any development. We've already done that. Okay, now the next thing I want to look at is using the HTML editor source view. So this may be most easily demonstrated if I actually go and show you that, but well, let me quickly cover here. Here on the left-hand side of the HTML editor, you have a little button which expands the toolbar so you can see all the options that are available to you. And you'll need to do this. And then on somewhere in this region here, it may be different on your editor. You'll have a little icon which allows you to see not the regular view in the window, but the source view. And if you look closely, you can see here, this is actually the source view because it has the text, but it's surrounded by little HTML characters, tags, the bold tags, to make the text bold. You're looking at the Atto editor here, but the same thing applies for the Tiny MCE editor. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at a piece of text that's in the HTML editor, and we're going to apply a CSS class to that, and that will show you a simple change that you can make using the HTML editor source view. So in this, we're going to add some Bootstrap goodness. So Bootstrap is a CSS framework put out by Twitter, and it makes a lot of those rounded buttons and nice kind of styles that you would be familiar with. Perhaps you didn't know they were using Bootstrap there. So let's start screen sharing, and I'll explain all that to you. Sure. Sure. Okay. So here we are on my Moodle Cloud site. This is not a site I use for anything other than testing, and really just playing around with Moodle as a default install, because you can't install plugins, which is a nice thing. You can just play around with what there is there. So let's go to the course that we have here. Introduction to Moodle. And here I have a boring table. Now this is a boring table, but the contents are quite exciting. This is about 70s TV shows, and I'll put this into edit mode. You'll see as Atto loads up that you can see the HTML briefly, but once Atto fully loads up, you are seeing a nice view which allows you to edit it nicely without having to worry about HTML tags. 70s TV shows, the hero's name, and the actor who played that part. But it's not especially pretty, is it? Like it's all running together, and it's not that exciting. And so, as a regular Joe who's not a coder, or a regular Jane, how would you deal with this and make it look nice? So one of the things that we can do, because in most themes in Moodle, Bootstrap, the CSS framework, is already loaded, we can just simply add a class to this table, and that will make this table look a whole lot nicer. So if we look at the table and I add class here equals table, and I go back out of the CSS view, you can see it's already looking a little bit different, isn't it? Okay, it's spaced it nicely and it's looking attractive. If I save that and display it, Buddha. Okay, it looks a lot nicer, doesn't it? You've got little lines to separate the rows, but we don't have column lines, and it's reasonably attractive. And this is simply adding a class, a CSS class, from the Bootstrap framework using the HTML editor source view. So let's have a quick look at these components. So this is getbootstrap.com components. There's a whole range of components that we can add here. We've simply just added a CSS class to our table, but for example, let's look at alerts. Look at these alerts here. We can see the green alert, a blue alert, a liver-colored alert, and a nice pink one. Okay, and these here in this particular HTML here you can see here. Now adding these by default into your Moodle might be a little bit tricky because we don't have any buttons on the editor to handle such a thing. But if we go into the HTML editor source view, then we can do that. So let's quickly do that. Right place. Again, let's edit the settings. And if we go to the source view, we have to wait just a moment. Paste that in. Now we'll actually have to put some text in it because it's got ... So let's put V majors. And we talked about ZX spectrums. Let's put one of those in there too. Let's not worry too much about spelling. 20. And even had an IBM 286 at one point. Okay, and let's save that and display. And you can see here we have some of that. The text that we entered there is displayed in this nice fashion. So you can actually put alerts to your students about various things right into the editor, and it'll look like that. And it will survive a backup and a restore, and you can go back there and edit it even in the HTML editor. Once you've set it up, it won't mess with it. It'll leave it as it is. And that is how you would use the HTML editor source view to tweak a little bit or add little snippets of code that are something you couldn't do just using the HTML editor toolbar itself. Now I'm going to leave screen sharing and come back to you. You could not see the code I edited, BBB latency. Possibly, I'm sorry about that. Due to screen loading, I'm missing the crucial moments when you actually type something. Okay, how are we going to deal with that? Okay, perhaps I should pause a little bit after I've added some text and then just start talking to you. Let's see if we can try that the next time I go into screen sharing. Breathe before you say. Pause after loading a new page. Indeed, quite right. Sorry about that. I will do just as you have suggested. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about here, we're really getting into the nitty-gritty now, is custom CSS. And as a person who works with Moodle quite a lot, I think everybody like Gareth or myself or Shane or in the designers I work with, we probably use custom CSS quite often. And well, not specifically custom CSS, but the technique I'm going to show you, which is okay, let me explain. Custom CSS, it's a text area located inside the specific theme that you are using. So that'll be site administration, appearance, themes, and your current theme. So if that is essential, it'll be in the essential settings. If it is Moodle Cloud, it will be in the Moodle Cloud settings. And here you can add CSS styles freely, and Moodle will pick those up and apply those. So you can do amazing things with this. If you just know a little bit of CSS, if you spend a little bit of time getting familiar with CSS, you can avoid having to get a new theme. You can add the sort of things that you see in nice themes that you like. Yeah, that's right. It is a specific thing to a theme, but I think any of the themes that most of us are using are going to the custom CSS area. And if they don't, yeah, you really should use a different theme, because you lose a lot of functionality without this. As an example of the use of custom CSS, you may have noticed on the Moodle Cloud sites by default, there is a nice post-it note. And it's angled a little bit, so it's moved clockwise, rotated clockwise slightly. It's yellow, and it's quite distinct from the area around it, and it looks a lot like a post-it note. In the HTML editor view, if you look at that post-it note, you actually see the same thing. It's rotated, it's yellow, and it looks like a post-it note. If you go into the source view of the HTML editor and you look at that post-it note, I'm not sure if you can see my screenshot very well there. I apologize, but they've actually gone into the HTML editor source view of that block. They've gone into the block, and then they've in the HTML editor they've entered the source view, and they've added some specific classes. And I think one of them is tip container. Thank you, Guido, that's good. And another one is class equals note yellow. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see in the custom CSS for the Moodle Cloud theme, they actually have some CSS there for yellow and note and tip container. And that is making this post-it note. So I have actually gone and implemented this post-it note on other themes, and other sites for fun, and also to demonstrate this thing here, just simply by copying these CSS styles and making a similar style block. So if you're going to use a custom CSS area, the workflow that we usually use is we open the browser console. I'll explain that in a moment. We select something. So this will be some item on the page. It might be a block, or it might be a piece of text. It might be a heading of some sort. And then in the browser console, it's possible to try out various CSS in real time and see how it affects the thing on the page. And when you get it looking just how you want it, you copy that CSS and you go into your custom CSS area and you paste it. And everyone thinks, it's amazing, you did that cool thing, but really it wasn't that hard. And let's go through and do that now, because it really is quite a simple thing to do, but it's quite effective. Before I go into that, I want to just talk quickly about the browser console. The browser console, it's an area for developers. It's included in all the major browsers. It's different for each of the major browsers, but the functionality is very similar. You can generally open the browser console by hitting F12 on your machine, but that's not universal. It doesn't work on my Mac, but it does work on my PC if I'm using Internet Explorer or if I'm using Google Chrome. Don't forget to test it in IE 11, otherwise it will be the first support call you receive. Yes, you've got to always have eyes in the back of your head, especially with IE. So yeah, some of the areas that we have in the browser console are the network tab, the console itself, which is like for JavaScript. You can see the source view, but what we are interested in today is on the right-hand side. Yeah, poor old Gareth. I don't know how he sleeps with all these essential things he has to deal with. But on the right-hand side, you can see the CSS styles that are applied to the currently selected text. And we can get in there and tweak those and mess with them. So good thing to do, and we're going to do that right now. To actually get a browser console, just try hitting F12, or I've actually written here some of the actual menu parts that you'll need to do to get there. I should say, I know you can actually get a pen and paper and scribble this down now, so I will make sure that this PDF is uploaded for you to look at later, should you wish to go through and do this. All right, let's try it. Let's fancy up our style, our site blocks on our Moodle cloud site. See how it goes. Full screen. Promise to pause before I do anything, so that the browser lag doesn't ruin the effectiveness of it. So here we have our boring table site, our boring table page on our Moodle cloud site. I'm going to hit F12 now, and that will open the browser console. I hope it doesn't do anything unexpected. Now I expect you're going to have some screen lag, so let me just talk my way through this. The browser console, it can open in a separate window, which is really nice if you have two screens. You can actually have the browser in one window and the console in another window. If you don't, or if you just prefer to have a compact view, then the browser console can appear beneath the page, but in the same window, which is how it's appearing now. And on the right-hand side here, you can see the styles of the currently selected text. So let me select some text. So in the case of Chrome, on the very left-hand side, there's a little icon here. And if you mouse over it, it says select an element in the page to inspect it. When I click on the element, click on the icon, it turns blue. And then I take my mouse over and I select something on the page. So in this case, I'm going to select the header text here for the block comments. I select that. Now you'll see that on the left-hand, the lower left, the actual HTML for the item that I selected is displayed. I can get in here and I can change this HTML if I want to. I can add a class, or I can change the tags to something else. If you've ever seen a screenshot where somebody talks about the $3 million that they have in their PayPal account, you can be sure that they came into this browser console here and they edited what shows on the page to be $3 million. They didn't actually make $3 million typing. On the right-hand side here is what we're interested in. We can see the CSS for this particular block. We can see the color, the font size, the font weight, the letter spacing, text transform, margin, top margin, bottom text shadow. We're going to add a nice border around this particular header. So if I click in here and I type border style is what I want, it'll actually give me a list of possible styles, which is wonderful. So let's choose dotted. Dotted's good. And you can see, there may be a screen lag, I apologize, but you can see at the top our block's header has in fact now received a dotted border. And that is not just applying to our comments block, it's applying to anything that this particular CSS affects. And so in that case, it's actually affecting all of the block titles. But that's good because we like to have dotted borders. So let's change the color now a little bit. Let's change the color of these borders. Border, color. Let's make it green, because we like green. Right, now we have green dotted borders. And let's make the borders really big, because we want people to notice them. Cool. Okay, so I've set the borders to be 4 pixels. I've set the style to be dotted, and I've set the color to be green. So we're really looking pretty good here. So I copy these styles here. Well, in fact, I'll copy the whole lot because I need to make sure that I get the block header H2 thing correct. I'm going to copy that. Right, so I just simply select it, and I do Control-C, and I copy it. And let me just remove this browser console just to make life a bit easier for us. going to change the page now. What I'll do is I'll open this in a new tab just to make it faster. Appearance, themes. And we're using the Moodle Cloud theme, so that's the one I want to add my custom CSS to. Just quickly check how these comments. Okay, so in the Moodle Cloud theme, the custom CSS area is right down the bottom. It's here, custom CSS. So let's add our styles at the very top. And there's actually no need for us to repeat the other styles that are already there because they're already there. So let's remove those. Let's just leave the style that we had there. So when I save this, those styles will be saved and they'll be applied when whenever we display blocks on a page. Those particular styles will be applied. It may be necessary for a application. I refresh my browser and check. I refresh the page. Great, and custom CSS styles have actually been applied. So this is what you saw was a bit trivial because we simply added dotted borders to block headers, and they look pretty awful. But that particular process of seeing an element, selecting it, messing with the CSS styles, trying a few things out until you get it looking right, then copying that CSS into your custom CSS area. This is a very common workflow for those of us who customize Moodle quite a lot. I hope that was useful. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. I'm going to come back to you. And I hope that was actually visible to everybody. We didn't lose it. Now the next thing I want to talk to, how are we going for time? We have a little bit of time. That's good. The next thing I want to talk about is Generico. Now Generico is a plugin. It's actually two plugins. It is it's a filter and it's an Atto editor plugin. I'll explain it briefly what it does. It's a little bit, I think at first people, they don't really get it. It takes a while to wrap your head around it, but it's very useful for customizing and styling Moodle how you want it. Basically, in Generico, you have the ability to add CSS and JavaScript and HTML in a single location, and that forms a template. And in that CSS and JavaScript and HTML, you can add little variables. So you put at width at, and that becomes a variable called width, or at my site ID at, and that becomes the variable my site ID. And then you simply add a tag to somewhere on your website with, Generico type equals whatever it might be. Andy's a great Generico man. He's made a good template. That will be merged with the variables that you place in the filter string to produce the output. So pretty abstract, but let's have a little look at what that actually appears, how that's going to work. So what you're seeing now are the settings for a single Generico template. And this is a YouTube template. Although we do have a YouTube displaying feature in Moodle already, this is a fairly good way of demonstrating how it works. You can see in the body of the template, we have the iframe tags, which contain the width and the height and the URL of the YouTube video. But you'll notice that in that declaration, there are variable declarations at width at height at and at ID at. Beneath that, we actually have defaults. So if you don't specify a width or a height, it will become these particular ones. So how does that look when it's all worked out? Well, the filter string that you would add to a page looks like generico type equals YouTube ID equals something or other. And the ID is the variable that is passed into the template, which is then merged with it to produce the output that you see in step 2, which is iframe height, width, and with the specific ID of that YouTube video. And that turns into the YouTube video itself. Now, it's actually possible to share your generico bundles. They are, there are generico bundles for making tabs in HTML areas or accordions in HTML areas. There are variables for making QR code generators, templates for making QR codes, making just nice Bootstrap buttons, Bootstrap style panels and alerts for embedding Prezi, YouTube lightboxes. There's lots of little things. If you're familiar with WordPress and the WordPress shortcode world, it's like shortcodes for Moodle, really. And I'll just give you a quick example of something that we do here. I'm going to share my screen again, just briefly. Are the YouTube video frames responsive? If you wish them to be, they are. The ones that I use in my own work are responsive, but some of the ones that I've just put up as demonstration YouTube video frames are not necessarily responsive. Now let's just bring back this we go here. I'm going to share my screen now and just show you a site where I've used Generico to a site I'm working on. What I want to be working on. I'm really working on this site. Boy, I'm not a designer. I'm the director of this particular site, but I'm not designing what you see here. I'm sure you can see it. Can you see it? Are we sharing it? You don't seem to be sharing. Okay, now we're sharing. Okay. So what you see here, these are progress charts here, and these are done with Generico. They check if you've done the activities in a particular course. And depending on your progress through the course, you'll get a progress chart like this. If we go into one of the courses, this is using Gareth's nice grid format. We can see. I'm sorry, it's all in Japanese, so you probably can't read it, but I'm going to show you a forum. There's all jumping around. We prepared the form straight away. All right, so you can see on this particular page here, this is a standard Moodle forum, but in this particular course, we have we have heaps of forums. We have like 20 of them or more, and then we have different courses, and they also have forums in them. And to centralize the styling of those forums and styling of most of the activities on the site, we have a Generico template specifically for the forum description, and it will draw this picture here and make this nice little area here, which is like a speech quote. And then on the top here, we have a button which says return to the module, return to the section in this case of our course. And we have these nice buttons here, which are styled. These are actually styled using custom CSS. But if you want to see what this actually looks like in code, if you actually have to go and edit in the HTML area, probably not what you expect. It's simply 3 or 4 Generico tags, and all the styling is all drawn from the Generico templates, which centralizes everything. So if we need to change the way we do a thing, we simply change it in the Generico template, and it changes all over town. It also allows, it's very easy to customize entire site with activities that are quite unique without having to modify the theme or get plugin developers or things like this. So using this, we've been able to get great mileage out of our Moodle site using basically simply the grid format and the shoelace theme, both of which are made by Gareth, and everything else is done via Generico. So we just have the two plugins that are non-standard. Okay, so I'll stop sharing now and stop talking now and come back, and then if you guys have questions, please go right ahead. Well, Sue's here. Sue can read. Thanks, Sue. Good to see you here. Great. Okay, and I think I've pretty much covered things. So just to cover on the mustache template. Well, Shane, I do have some thoughts on that. Yeah. Where to start with generic? I think I should have prepared some links actually for you for generic. I'll just get those for you now. Hold on a moment. Start here, or there's actually an Atto editor which allows you to an Atto editor icon which allows you to enter your Generico templates into an HTML area without actually having to remember all the funny strings and the variable names. It will give you a little pop-up dialog and a space to enter the variable values. Role level, Generico, you have to be an administrator because everything takes place at the site administration plugin levels. I have thought about making nice course level a version of Generico, but at this stage I just haven't had time to do that. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to have Generico templates that were defined at a course level and teachers could edit them, but right now that's not the case. Shoelace, well, I'm not sure about shoelace. I'm interested to see that. Sorry, a mustache. I'm interested to see that Gareth is now a mustached shoelace. But when I looked at mustache, I felt a lot of the things that I need were not there. Like I couldn't see how to do a single button, what's called a single button in the Moodle output renderers. I couldn't see how to do that in mustache and various other things which were available using the standard renderers. I couldn't see in mustache. And it didn't seem to be especially well documented, so I was never confident to teach my students about it actually, and that prevented me from using it a great deal myself. So Bootstrap on the login page, but it did not work. Bootstrap on the login page. Let's see. Well, yeah. Anyway, let's open the floor to questions. So if you have any questions now, please ask me. I'm happy to answer them. And Bootstrap on the login page, yes. I guess perhaps Bootstrap is not loaded in your theme. It may not be a Bootstrap theme. You could also, however, you can actually use the additional HTML area in Moodle, in the appearance, site administration appearance, additional HTML. You can actually load CSS libraries or JavaScript libraries if you wish to, and that might make Bootstrap available. Oh, I see. In your okay, yeah. So you're not sure about the specifics, Guido. If that means that you're developing, it might mean that you need to you have to be a little bit careful about bundling Bootstrap with your plugin if that's what you're doing, because sometimes people have customized Bootstrap and your changes can overwrite them. So it's a bit tricky. I bundled Bootstrap with Read Aloud, a module of mine, without considering that, and actually that caused issues on some themes. So I had to put a little checkbox there to selectively or conditionally load Bootstrap or not load it. I'm working on partial with mustache on shoelace, but still learning. Yeah. I suppose I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I think sometimes Moodle rushes off on all these strange new development tangents, and they don't always, they're not always time I would consider well spent as a plugin maintainer, having to support these new things that come out. So I'm perhaps a little bit resistant of some of the changes that come out of Moodle HQ at times, but I try to have a good attitude because I don't pay anything for Moodle, but it does a lot for me. Okay, so any questions about custom CSS or about Generico or about any of the other things we mentioned here? Bootstrap. Okay. Well, we're getting close to the hour mark, so I will wrap it up here unless there's anything specific. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming along. I really, I'm glad to see that everybody came in. It was a good opportunity for me to get some of my thoughts in order about this and prepare the presentation. So if I get a chance, I'd like to do the presentation live somewhere, sometime. And I hope it was useful for you.
Let me just quickly jump in, Justin, and say thank you for a great presentation. And I was taking notes. I was actually doing code while you were talking, just coming up with ideas. So it's awesome when it's inspiring like that. So yeah, I agree. It's very clear, very actionable. There's a lot of stuff in this to take away. So thank you for your time and sharing all that with us.
Okay, thanks very much. Everybody have a good day or night or morning, wherever you are. And maybe I'll see you in New Zealand or Australia later in the year, or Japan soon.